welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abassi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor, and this is Boris, who has been panting for like an hour now. I took a shower and he was just like panting, like he's waiting for something to happen. And I don't quite know what it is. Trust me, I have done all I need to take care of him, and now he's just fat and panting. That's all we've got. He's laying down now, finally. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about the phrase keep coming back. And this is something that we say in sobriety, for newcomers when they start coming into the meetings and expressing a lot of the frustration and fear and desperation. Quite often, we will respond with "keep coming back." And when I heard that in I was going to say early sobriety, but the correct phrase is before I got sober. I didn't know why they kept saying that to me, keep coming back. Like, it didn't make any sense to me. There was a lot of stuff that my sobriety folks were saying to me that didn't make any sense. Um, I was so desperate and fearful that that was louder than everything else. I was listening in meetings. I was trying to take suggestions, but the suggestions didn't make any sense. I didn't know why, what it was going to do for me. If I feel this way now and I just keep showing up to this meeting, how's that going to do anything? But it does. And if you keep coming back, it starts to slowly reveal itself. So the best advice is not giving advice and giving the simple suggestion, keep coming back, because that's where it all is. It's all in the meetings. For me, it was all in the meetings. I did have to go to detox twice, but we'll talk about this sobriety. I needed to go to detox in order to stop drinking, stop the physical action of drinking, and detox my body, go through withdrawal in the presence of medical professionals. But when I was there, I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous, and we had meetings inside the detox facility, but we also had a lot of therapy inside. It was group therapy. I remember a creative session where I don't remember what we did, but I remember going into like an art room kind of feeling, and we like drew or something. We did something artsy. And I remember being like, oh, finally we get to do something fun. um, but I didn't know what all of it was for. I still didn't get it. I understood when I got to go in and talk to like a therapist. I understood what that was for, because that was something that I had already been familiar with because of my struggles with anxiety and depression and my previous marriage and all of that stuff. Like, I knew what talk therapy was supposed to do, like get it all out. That's what I felt like talk therapy was about, was just depleting all of that anxiety, depression, and all of the fear that went with it, so that I don't know, I didn't have to walk around with it. I did not look at talk therapy, honestly, as I was gaining something. I only looked at it as I was giving something. I was getting rid of something. And this current psychiatrist that I've been seeing, this time I've been looking at it completely different. Um, I told her last year when I was seeing her, I felt like, in retrospect, I was going to her with solutions for my anxiety and depression. I was going to her with, like, this is how I feel and this is what I think I should do. Um, and this time I've been going to her for about 3 weeks, and I told her I want to approach this differently than I have in the past. I see that I'm still looking for answers within myself and communicating those. And that's not what I need to be coming here for is to hear another perspective, like be open to another perspective, be honest about what I feel, and be open to suggestions. And I don't know why I never noticed that before. I have no idea, but I'm glad that I notice it now. And I feel like I'm a little more settled into the therapy sessions. I feel like I'm not on the spot. I don't feel like I have to come there ready to entertain her, if that makes any sense. Like, okay, this is what I'm going to talk about. This is the problem, and this is what I've been doing about it. That's a lot of pressure, and I didn't even realize I was doing it to myself. So, anywho, um, going to meetings is different than going to therapy. It can possibly feel like group therapy where you go around the room and everybody shares about their experience, but everybody's there for a common purpose. In these Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, everybody's there because they want to or need to stop drinking. But it goes deeper than that when you keep coming back. So my desperation got me into the sobriety meetings. I didn't know where else to go. When I went to detox, that was full on desperation. Um, and then I was introduced to, I had gone to AA before I went to detox, but when I went to detox and experienced it in there, I could hear better. I was able to listen better because my brain wasn't clouded with alcohol. And when I started listening, I started feeling this kind of fear about having to look inward and do something, having to take action and do something about all of these problems in my life. And I thought that stopping drinking, I had no inkling that stopping drinking was going to solve my problems. It really felt like stopping drinking was making me have to not even deal with my problems. Like it exposed my problems. And it was terrible. It felt terrible. I was so sad and depressed and scared. And I understand why it's so easy to go back to drinking because it's that self-medication where it's just terrifying to look at the stuff that we had been drinking over. Um, but when I kept coming back, that fear started to evolve into hope. And that was because I heard people sharing about their desperation and fear when they got into the meetings. I started to be able to relate. Um, More and more often, I would hear people sharing about their experience. And then right after their experience, they would flow into strength and hope. And because of that, I could see that my desperation and fear, my experiences, if it worked for them, why can't mine evolve and flow into strength and hope? So that hope started to develop from listening to others. And the only way I could listen to others is if I kept coming back. And so often on Saturday mornings, I've shared about this all the time. On Saturday mornings at 10 a.m., I was like, I do not want to go to this meeting. I do not want to get dressed and go to this meeting after having worked all week and driving an hour and a half both ways to work. Like all I wanted to do was chillax. But that's where doing the next right thing comes in. I turn off my wanter and I do it anyway. And gosh, I remember sitting there in my recliner. I always talk about this recliner. Gosh, it was the most comfortable recliner I've ever had. Um, I don't have it anymore. It didn't match our decor, so I had to get rid of my recliner, and I'm very regretful of that. Anyway, I remember sitting in my Saturday morning recliner and thinking, I don't wanna to the point that I just wanted to start crying. And before I started crying, I stood up on my feet. And when I stood up on my feet, I didn't feel like crying anymore because that despair is something that seems to swallow me when I'm not moving. And I talked about that yesterday or the day before. Like, I think that's why I move so much because I'm afraid to sink back and be swallowed into desperation or any of those feelings of fear. So I would just get up and start walking towards the stairs to go upstairs and get dressed to go. And that was the momentum that I talked about yesterday. Those tiny little micro actions that build the momentum to get me where I need to go. And in those cases, it was to the meetings. And then, so I'm listening to all these folks who, there was a guy who had actually killed somebody in a drunken stupor. He doesn't remember it. It was in a car accident. And some of that stuff that's like, that hasn't happened to me yet. The yet part was what I started to hear I needed to put at the end of the sentences. So if I'm listening to other people and hear a story that does not resonate with me, or I think, oh, well, I'm not that bad, I need to put the word yet behind it because alcoholism is a fatal progressive disease. And although I had not injured anyone physically in my drunken stupors, that doesn't mean that that's not in the cards for me if I pick up a drink again. So I just kept listening and I kept relating in every way that I could to either what happened in my experience or what could happen if I picked up a drink again. So from that, what I also gained from listening is other people's experience with faith. And I started to hear people say, I came in here as an agnostic, or I came in here with I grew up Catholic and then I lost all faith, and coming into the sobriety rooms helped me gain that faith back again, or helped me to build a new faith, one that's totally different than I had when I was growing up. I heard that my faith doesn't have to look like anybody else's. And when I heard that that was okay, that's when mine started growing. That I got to do whatever I wanted and it didn't have to look like anyone else's and I didn't have to talk about it. It was just private to me. I did share a little bit with my sponsors over the years, a little bit, like a very little bit. I had a really hard time talking about faith. Um, Even when I started this podcast, 2.5 years ago, I think, something like that, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. I don't even know. Some days I'm like, I can't even figure out the calendar. But when I started this podcast, I still didn't want to talk about it. But as I continue to just be like, it doesn't, if it can help somebody else to talk about how faith was uncomfortable for me, then I'm going to talk about it. And that today is why I bring it up now. And I feel okay about it. I feel okay about it. And I think that's a lot of that's progress. So I think that when I look at my whole journey with the idea of keep coming back, it comes down to openness. It comes down to willingness. And I always equate that to turning off my wanter. It comes down to being honest with myself and knowing that, how can I say this? Like, when I have self talk, when I'm sitting in these meetings and I'm either relating or not relating or judging or whatever I'm doing in my head while I'm listening in my meetings, I have been introduced to a new relationship with myself, a way of being honest with myself and not trying to pull the wool over my own eyes. When I was drinking, I was I was lying to myself and I wasn't going to get anywhere. I wasn't going to heal that way. And it required me to be open to show up to a meeting and hear somebody say, keep coming back. And that's what that means to me now. Keep coming back. It means like what you see today of these sobriety meetings, of yourself, of the world, it's going to look a lot different if you keep coming back, if you keep listening, because you don't have to do it alone anymore. That we're all doing it together, and that's the best way to live, with community. It really, really is. So that's what I've got for you today. Thank you for listening. I'm going to get my hair stids, and I will talk to you tomorrow.